Welcome to Pick Up and Deliver, the podcast where I pick up my audio recorder as I take the dog out for a walk and deliver an episode to you while we stroll around. I'm Brendan Riley. Welcome back, listeners. I say welcome back because I am continuing the episode that I recorded previously, in which I was telling you about the games that are on my want list. The next 8 are all games that I would say I'm extremely eager to get. Some of them are really new, some of them are not even out yet, but I have them on here because the whole idea is I should be marshaling my funds so that when the time comes, I am able to buy them if I get the chance. So the games, today I'm going to talk about the top 8 games. As a reminder, I have a couple different categories for what games I'm looking for. I have new and exciting games. I have designer games, meaning games that I'm interested in mostly because of who the designer is. I have what I'm calling classics, but really just games that have been out a while and I never got around to picking up. And then I have completionist games that I'm getting not because of the designer necessarily, but because I want to have all the things for that game. And then finally, grail games, which would be games that are very hard to get or very expensive. And at some point, I would like to get those if I have the opportunity. So I covered numbers 15 through 9 on my current wish list. And now I'm on the top 8. So number 8 is another Uwe Rosenberg title, which I have on here as a classic rather than as a designer game. Although if 2 of my 3 classics on my list, and this is the last of those, are by Uwe Rosenberg, you could probably argue I'm shopping by designer rather than classics. But this is Glass Road. Glass Road is one of Rosenberg's newer games. I think it's 2012. I guess that's not all that new. It's a rondel game, which is something I don't have much of in my collection. I did recently get Shipyard by Vladimir Suchy, which is also a rondel game. But it looks really neat. It feels pretty different than his other worker placement games. Having Agricola and A Feast for Odin already, I don't feel the need to get Caverna. And I've played Patchwork and I enjoy that, although I don't have a copy. But I'm not very interested in his lighter games, the Cottage Garden and those. Nusfjord is another one that I might be interested in, although I sort of see that as in the same place as Caverna in terms of too close to A Feast for Odin for me to reach out. But Glass Road seems different enough, and as does Le Havre, which was my number 9. So this is my number 8. So I guess Le Havre and Glass Road are kind of together on this list. Probably if I get one, the other one will drop dramatically on the list because I don't think I'm going to get 2 by him right away. But that's another classic game I'm interested in, Glass Road. And that is the last of the classic games I now have. Of the 7 remaining on my list, 5 are new and exciting. 1 is a designer game and 1 is a grail game. So number 7 is a new and exciting game. This is Project Elite. Project Elite came out on Kickstarter a couple years ago, and while it looked pretty interesting, it was very expensive. It's a real-time space combat game, which is the hardest part of it because that means my wife won't play it. She's not interested at all. And I think it's already going to be a bit of effort to get her interested in playing Hellboy. She might not be interested in that. So getting another big sort of tactical battle game maybe isn't the best choice. It's real time, which looks really interesting. It's got nothing but great reviews from the people who have the early edition. And it's coming from CMON, so it's going to be one of those tons of miniatures, tons of expansions, very expensive games. So while it's on my list right now, I'm kind of doubting it'll stay there, just because my opportunities to play it are going to be really low, and I know myself, I'm not going to want to buy it if I can't go all in. I'm not going to want to get like just the base game and leave the expansions unpurchased. Because with CMON especially, you get such a good deal when you buy it during the Kickstarter. On the plus side though, buying it would mean having a game that's coming later, which is always fun, a little present for yourself in the future. But when I compare that one game to, say, 3 or 4 other games on this list, it's going to be pretty hard to say, yeah, I should buy that, especially if I could get like 4 of the games that are above it on my wish list. So we'll have to see. Right now, I've got it at number 7. That's Project Elite, coming from CMON in Q4 of this year. Number 6 on my list is the last of the designer games that I have on here, games I'm pursuing, mostly because of the pedigree of the designer. Although some of the newer games fit that way as well, but new and exciting is a different category. Anyway, this is, you might also call this a completionist game. This is League of Six. League of Six is a 2008 game from Vladimir Suhi, and this would be the sixth and final game that he's published that I don't have. So I'm pretty excited about this one because it would mean I have all of his game, which is something I'm not sure I can say about any other designer. But I've really liked everything of his I've played. I'm kind of telling myself in my head, though, I need to play 20th Century first to make sure that his older stuff isn't terrible. Because I would feel kind of bad plunking down $40 for a game. Because that's about what it's going to... I mean, it's going for between 15 and 20 in like new or new condition on Board Game Geek, but there's another 15 shipping. So I'm going to have to pay like $35 for it probably. And paying that much for a real stinker just to say I have all of his games would be a bummer, but it's pretty well rated on Board Game Geek. His other games have all been super hits for me, but I feel like I should play Shipyard and 20th Century before I pull that trigger. But anyway, as I had to order them in my excitement level, that's number 6, League of Six from Vladimir Suhi. Number 5 is the game I would call a Grail game. So Grail games, as I understand them, are games that you would love to have, but are either impossible to get or so expensive that it's prohibitive to get them. And for me, that game is the 2012 game Collapsible D, The Final Moments of the Titanic. This is produced by an Italian game publisher who has gone on to make several other games. So they are, it's Chester Copperpot Games, or Copperpot Games, which is a fun little Goonies nod. And I am, as I've said before, a Titaniac. I'm interested in all things Titanic. And even though one of the Titanic board games I have is just terrible, and the other is old, and I haven't gotten to try it, this is one of the only modern ones to have come out, and it looks really interesting. It's got great cover art. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem to be available at all in the States. In Europe, you can get, there are currently 2 copies on Board Game Geek. One is in Italian, so that's not going to work for me. I'm not doing paste ups. The other is in English. It's for sale by someone in Great Britain. They're asking £68 for it, plus I'd have to pay to ship it. So I bet I'm spending over $100 for this game. And that's an awful lot to swallow for a game that I have no idea how good it is. So there's not much in the way of reviews of this, and any reviews that would have been written in 2012 when the game came out would be a far cry from a review written with the perspective of a 2018 reviewer in terms of quality. So this is probably just going to stay on my list as a Grail game until I find it in an auction or I find someone selling it in the US for something like a reasonable price. But that's Collapsible D, The Final Minutes of the Titanic. Number 4 on my want list definitely falls into this new and exciting category. It's a game from Eric Lang and I believe Rob Davio, although I might be mistaken on that. It's Eric Lang and Bruno Cathala, or Antoine Bauza. Oh, good research, Brendan. It's Eric Lang and somebody else. It's called Victorian Masterminds. The premise is that Sherlock Holmes has gone missing, and while he's missing, all of the villains do all sorts of terrible things. It looks really great. The art is lovely. I've been excited about this game for a year and a half since it was first announced. It was moved from, I want to say, Roxley or Grey Fox Games, dropped the license, and then Simon picked it up, and it's due out toward the end of this year. So that one is definitely on my acquire list. I think it's going to be in pretty wide supply, so I'm hoping that I'll just be able to get it when it comes out. A couple of the websites are already selling pre-orders for it, which is weird to me because they haven't announced a release date yet. So I haven't put any money down for a pre-order. Miniature Market usually has pretty good prices, so I may, when a release date is announced, I may go and put money down on a pre-order for that, because I like the way Miniature Market does it, where you can pre-order your games or order your games, and as long as you buy $100 worth at once, then shipping will be free, and they just hold them until they're ready. And as somebody who runs a big collection like this, that's no problem. I can wait a little bit, though I would probably make sure Victorian Masterminds is not in an order with another game that hasn't come out yet, because oodalali, that looks exciting. And we're up to my top 3. These are my top 3 games about which I'm most excited. All 3 I heard about through press in Gen Con, and all 3 of these are probably games I would buy pretty quickly. Number 3, the third most wanted game on my list, is a new design from Dunstan and Gilbert. These are the designers behind the amazing Elysium, which is a game, every time I think about it, I'm like, oh man, why haven't I played that? In part it's because it's really long, but it's super good. And they did Professor Evil in the Citadel of Time, which I was not interested in after I heard some reviews. But I'm super interested in this. I'm going to have to hear some reviews beforehand, because if it falls on the Professor Evil side of things, I'll probably say no. But if it falls on the Elysium side of things, heck yeah. And that's Raids, published by Yellow, so it's going to have excellent component quality. It's got a Viking Nordic theme. And again, designer pedigree here. Elysium bought them 3 or 4 games worth of credit before I start wondering whether they didn't know what they were doing or not. But for now, Raids is my number 3 interested game. Also, really tasty price point, under $50. So a game I might be able to acquire pretty easily without having to argue too much with myself. The second most exciting game to come out of Gen Con, and this is just news, as far as I know it's not out and not going to be out soon, and that's the Plaid Hat game Gen 7. The premise of this game is that you're on a generation ship flying to another planet. It's got a kind of, it's part of the Crossroads series. It's got a kind of legacy component in terms of decisions you make in the story affect things you'll learn later. Plaid Hat is the publisher, and they have fantastic production values. They're very good at world building. They're very good at producing pretty games. While I haven't loved every game of theirs that I have gotten, I've really enjoyed most of them. In fact, I would say the common denominator in the games I haven't loved is that Jerry Hawthorne was the designer. So both Mice and Mystics and Stuffed Fables I thought were kind of mediocre. And Jerry Hawthorne is the one on both of those. So maybe I just don't like his storytelling style or something. But Dead of Winter was great, is great. And this is another game in that series. And it's got a really cool theme. It does hurt a little bit. Rob and I have batted back and forth and developed to a pretty strong vaporware an idea for a game built around a generation ship. So that's a bummer to have a game come out with that theme. Now ours is a lot more ridiculous, it sounds like, but assuming this game is successful, I suspect we'll backburner that game just because we have so many other designs that we could work on that aren't in the same mind space as this other game that came out that's very popular. And finally, my number 1 game from Simon Games, already out, teasing me from the advertising column on the side of Board Game Geek every time I go there. The Phil Walker Harding title, Gizmos. Now, Phil Walker Harding, I love Barren Park. I thought it was great. I've looked at some of his other titles, and I think they all have impressive ideas. He's like the master of the simple yet thinky filler. Also produced by Simon, and it's in their line of games. In the category of games next to Potion Explosion, with really neat stuff on the table for you to look at when you're playing. And it's just the mechanisms look really neat. It's like a light filler engine builder, and it just looks great. I'm super excited. That one is the top of my current wish list, and I will probably have it before the end of September, would be my guess. Maybe sooner. So that's my top 15 wish list. I don't see it changing dramatically, but I will keep you up to date every now and again, maybe monthly, as new games come out and I get excited about them. So pop over to BoardGameGeek.com and visit Guild 3269 and let us know what's at the top of your wish list. How do you decide what games to prioritize when you're making an order or going to a con? Does an auction, a good deal at an auction, intrigue you, or do you pass up the opportunity for a quick purchase that way in favor of something more nuanced and subtle? I'm really curious to know, and I hope that you'll stop by and let us know. In the meantime, I will be doing my best to stick to my budget, and looking forward to chatting with you online about the games you're interested in or you've been playing. Thanks for joining me. We'll talk to you next time. I hope that your next walk is as pleasant as mine was. Bye-bye.
Brought to you by Rattlebox Games.